I call this October 14th, 2025 meeting of council to order at 6 p.m. This meeting will be held in a hybrid manner where members of council, staff, and the public can participate electronically. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available on the township website. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, that all information attained is considered part of the public record. All rules apply to the meeting as if everyone was attending in person, and if there is a problem with the technology impacting the proceedings of the meeting may be recessed. So I would ask everyone to stand if they can for the playing of the national anthem. We acknowledge that we are being hosted on ancestral lands of the Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, and Omama-Winini people. We acknowledge and welcome the presence of all Indigenous people, including the Métis, Inuit, and other First Nations from across this vast land, who also make this place home. The lands we are on today are recognized in the Two-Row Wampum, Dish with One Spoon Treaty, Treaty 27, and the Crawford Purchase. So council, the first item we have is a confirmation of the agenda. Do we have a mover? Councillor Prodrick. So moved. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Townend. All in favor? Motion is passed. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof for this evening's meeting? Being none, we had no closed session, so we're going straight into presentations. We have two presentations this evening. The first is a strong mayor framework being presented to council, and we just ask if you want to come forward right to the chairs there and by the mics. And if you just push the button, it will light up and then you're live. And welcome, great to see you again, Peter. So just for, not everyone on council would recognize you. Peter was with Loyalist Township the very early stages of his career. And when he left us, he's advanced his career significantly. And now he's here to share information with us. So it's great to see you. There we go.
My name is Lilit. I'm a municipal advisor within Eastern Municipal Services Office at Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And you know Peter Sizov, a senior municipal advisor within the same ministry. And We are here to discuss strong mayor powers frameworks, and we appreciate the opportunity to discuss this with you. So today we'll start with an overview of the strong mayor power framework. For those that attended the one or more of the four strong mayor powers technical overview webinars, the ministry hosted in late May, early June, and 2 more in late August. The first section may act as a refresher. For those who didn't attend, it may be new information, so we hope you find it helpful. And before we begin, we need to provide this disclaimer. The information provided in this presentation by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing is not a substitute for specialized legal or professional advice. The presentation is for information purposes only and has been summarized and condensed for purposes of time. Heads of council, municipalities, and councillors are responsible for making local decisions that are in compliance with the law, such as applicable statutes and regulations. Okay. To start, let's look at strong mayor powers framework in more details. As you know, in some municipalities, the head of council has additional powers and duties known as strong mayor powers and duties. The details are set out in the strong mayor power framework and in the legislation and regulations outlined in the graphic. In fall 2022, the head of council of the City of Toronto and City of Ottawa were the first to receive strong mayor powers. The strong mayor framework has since been expanded to 214 municipalities. For those that have these powers, our regulation does not provide a mechanism for a strong mayor municipality to remove themselves from the strong mayor powers framework. Small councils or less than 6 members have not received strong mayor powers to preserve a balance of decision-making on council. Some question whether council's designation as a strong mayor municipality would be revoked if its composition was reduced to a 5-member council. Council size and composition is determined locally. Municipalities may increase or decrease their council size before each council term. There is currently no mechanism under the Municipal Act that designates strong mayor municipalities based on council size. Rather, the 6-member threshold is a provincial policy decision, which is implemented through the list of designated municipalities in Regulation 530/22. If a municipality changes the size of their local council, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing may change their designation as a strong mayor municipality. Some strong mayor powers are related to provincial priorities identified in regulation under Municipal Act, which are to build 1.5 million new residential units by December 31st, 2031, construct and maintain infrastructure to support housing, including transit, roads, utilities, and servicing. This will be in more details on the following slides. The head of council in strong mayor municipalities is subject to existing accountability and transparency rules, as well as certain additional rules. Generally, when the head of council uses their strong mayor powers or duties, they are required to provide written documentation to the municipal clerk and members of council by the next business day. They must also make this written documentation available to the public. And I noticed your municipal website presents this information very clearly, nicely done. Written documentation requirements vary with respect to some of the powers and duties, such as the use of the veto, aspects of the budget process, and power to direct staff. Implementation of the strong mayor framework is a local matter. It is up to the head of council, and municipality to implement the framework in accordance with the legislation and associated regulations. Note that the decision about when and where to seek the legal opinion is unique for each head of council and local circumstance or situation. The strong mayor powers framework identifies 9 specific powers and duties given to the head of council of designated municipalities. The first is that the head of council in strong mayor power municipality can choose to appoint and dismiss the municipality's chief administrative officer. Note that the CO position is a discretionary position for all municipalities. The head of council may choose to delegate this power to council. In a strong mayor municipality, the powers of a municipality under Section 229 of the Municipal Act with respect to the CAO are assigned to the head of council. Subject to local circumstances, including existing contracts or collective agreements, a strong mayor has the authority to appoint or dismiss the municipality's CAO. The second power that a strong mayor has is the ability to hire municipal division heads and change the municipality's organizational structure. Using this, head of council may hire or dismiss certain municipal division heads. The head of council can also choose to create and reorganize the structure of the municipality. When making any changes to the organizational structure of the municipality, the head of council and municipality are subject to legal requirements, including any terms in existing collective agreements or contracts they may apply. The head of council may choose to delegate these powers to council or the municipality's CAO. Many municipalities appoint the same person as the CAO and the clerk, and it may be helpful to clarify how the head of council is able to use their strong mayor powers with respect to a person appointed to both roles. The head of council can choose to appoint their municipality CAO and can hire or fire certain municipal division heads, excluding statutory positions such as the clerk. This means that while the head of council has the authority to appoint the CAO, council retains the authority to appoint the clerk. Third, strong mayors can also establish committees of council and appoint the committee chairs and vice chairs. The functions of these committees can also be signed by the mayor. Using this power, the head of council can create new committees of council under the Municipal Act, where all members are council members and assigned their functions. The head of council is also able to appoint the chairs and vice chairs of such committees of council. The head of council may choose to delegate these committee-related powers to council. The fourth strong mayor power is that they may also appoint the chair and vice chair of prescribed boards. Under the Municipal Act, the head of council has the power to appoint the chairs and vice chairs of prescribed local boards or classes of local boards. This power can only be used if a minister's regulation prescribes local boards. Given that the current minister's regulations do not prescribe any local boards, this power cannot be used. Certain strong mayor powers are related to provincial priorities. These are the powers to bring matters forward for council consideration, purpose municipal bylaws, and veto all of municipal bylaw. The prescribed provincial priorities include building 1.5 million new residential units by December 31st, 2031, and supporting infrastructure related to housing, including transit, roads, and servicing. The next three powers directly relate to these prescribed provincial priorities. The fifth strong mayor power allows head of council to bring forward matters for council consideration if they are of the opinion that considering the matter could potentially advance a provincial priority. When bringing forward such a matter for council consideration, the head of council should consider whether any rules with respect to notice and public consultation apply to the exercise of a particular municipal authority. Sixth, the head of council can propose certain municipal bylaws if they are of the opinion that the proposed bylaw could potentially advance a provincial priority identified in regulation. It is important to clarify how voting thresholds are calculated in a strong mayor municipality. Bylaws proposed by the head of council using this power are passed if more than 1/3 of all council members vote in favor of the bylaw. The head of council is also able to vote on this bylaw. For example, in 6-member council, if the head of council uses the strong mayor power, bylaw proposal power, they require at least 3 council members to vote in favor to meet the more than 1/3 threshold. When using this power, the head of council can only propose bylaws made under the Municipal Act, the Planning Act, or Section 2 of the Development Charges Act. The head of council must provide a copy of the proposed bylaw and their reasons for the proposal to the clerk and each council member. The head of council can require council to consider and vote on the proposed bylaw at a meeting. Municipal procedure bylaws and bylaws related to filling a vacancy on council are excluded from this power. The last power related to provincial priorities provides a strong mayor the power to veto certain bylaws if they are of the opinion that all or part of the bylaws could potentially interfere with the provincial priority identified in the regulation. Only bylaws made under the Municipal Act, the Planning Act, and Section 2 of the Development Charges Act may be voted by the head of council. The head of council must provide written notice of their intent to consider vetoing the bylaw on or before 2 days after council voted in favor of the bylaws. If the head of council decides to use their veto within 14 days after the day council voted in favor of the bylaw, the head of council must provide a written veto document to the clerk on the day they use the veto power. The clerk must then share the written document with each member of council by the next business day and make the written document available to the public. Note that within 21 days after the clerk provides the written veto document to the members of council, council may override the head of council veto in 2/3 of council members vote to do so. For example, if a 7-member council wanted to override the mayor's decision to veto a bylaw, this would require 5 members to vote in favor of the override. During this process, the head of council remains as a member of council for council decision-making with 1 vote. The 8th strong mayor power is that they can propose the municipal budget and in-year budget amendments, which would be subject to council amendments and the separate mayoral veto and council override process. We'll cover this more in detail later. The 9th and final strong mayor power is that they can direct staff to do certain things related to their additional powers and duties. When a head of council directs municipal staff to do certain things related to their strong mayor powers and duties, they must do so in writing and are required to provide written documentation to the municipal clerk and CAO by the next business day. The head of council is also subject to rules in the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act that limit the use of their strong mayor powers and duties when they have certain financial interests in a municipal matter. If the head of council is prohibited from preparing aspects of the budget due to financial interest, the council can pass a resolution to amend the budget to address the matter. The head of council cannot veto these amendments. Also, as we'll see in later slides, council can override a head of council's veto of bylaws or budget amendments in 2/3 of all council members vote to override the veto. Occasionally, municipalities have asked if a strong mayor is required to approve a bylaw that had council support for it to be passed by the municipality. The strong mayor framework does not require heads of council to approve bylaws for them to be passed. However, there may be special commencement rules for certain bylaws under the Municipal Act, Planning Act, and the Section 2 of the Development Charges Act. Let's talk about budget. In a strong mayor municipality, the powers and duties of municipality with respect to proposing and adopting a budget are assigned to the head of council of the municipality. Each strong mayor municipality may adopt local processes and procedures that best respond to the municipality's local needs and circumstances. In a strong mayor municipality, the head of council has the responsibility to prepare and propose the municipal budget on or before February 1st of each year. It is important to note that if the head of council does not propose the budget by February 1st, council must prepare and adopt the budget. This process is subject to council amendments and a separate head of council veto and council override process. The head of council must share the proposed budget with each member of council and the municipal clerk and make it available to the public. If the head of council proposes a budget by February 1st, the decision tree outlines how the budget process could proceed. At the first step, after receiving the proposed budget from the head of council, council can amend the proposed budget by passing a resolution within a 30-day review period. Note that the council may shorten this 30-day period by passing a resolution. If council does not propose amendments to the budget, the process moves forward through the steps until the proposed budget is deemed adopted. If council proposes amendments, the head of council has 10 days from the end of the 30-day council review period to veto any council amendments. The head of council may shorten this review period by providing documentation to members of council and the municipal clerks. If the head of council wishes to veto council amendments, the head of council must provide written documentation of the veto and rationale to each member of council and the municipal clerk on the day of the veto. If the mayor does not exercise their veto power, the budget, as amended by council, will be deemed adopted. Council may override the head of council's veto. Up to 15 days following the end of the head of council's veto period, council may override some or all of the head of council's vetoes if 2/3 of all council members vote in favor. Again, this period can be shortened by council resolution. At the end of this process, the resulting budget is adopted by the municipality. It is worth mentioning that there is a separate process for the head of council to propose in-year budget amendments to raise additional amounts from property tax. Only the head of council has the power to propose such in-year amendments. Given the upcoming municipal election and the desire to prepare the budget early for good fiscal management, municipalities may wish to start putting plans, procedures, and timelines in place that will facilitate the 2026 municipal budget process. Municipalities may also wish to review and update existing policies and procedures to ensure alignment with the strong mayor framework. While the head of council can delegate certain strong mayor powers, the legislation and regulations limit who these powers can be delegated to. Certain strong mayor powers may be delegated back to council or to the CAO. As you can see from the diagram on this slide, strong mayors can delegate their power to appoint or dismiss a CAO, as well as committee-related powers to council. They can also delegate their power to hire or dismiss certain division heads, as well as their power to change the organizational structure of the municipality to the CAO or council. The scope of the delegation, including the term, will depend on the specific of each particular delegation. The strong mayor framework provides no ability for the head of council to delegate the strong mayor powers to the deputy head of council. In the case of a head of council vacancy or absence, strong mayor powers do not transfer to interim acting head of council. In the case of a vacancy, once a new head of council has been elected pursuant to the by-election, that person will be the head of council and able to exercise the strong mayor powers and duties. It is ultimately up to the head of council to decide whether to delegate certain strong mayor powers to council and or the CAO. And the strong mayors have the authority to revoke prior delegations. The strong mayor framework does not require a head of council to consult or provide specific notice regarding a delegation decisions. One more slide here. It is up to the head of council and municipality to implement the strong mayor powers framework in accordance with the legislation and associated regulations. Local procedures and processes make the implementation unique for each council, head of council, and administration. Note that the decision about when and where to seek a legal opinion is unique to each particular head of council and local circumstances. In practice, this means that each strong mayor municipality may adopt local processes and procedures that best respond to the municipality's local needs and circumstances. Decisions such as delegation of certain powers will also need to be implemented individually and procedural bylaws updated to reflect the appropriate changes. With that overview complete, let's now look at some resources available to assist staff and council with the implementation of strong mayor powers. Now my colleague Peter Sizov will continue with the section.
Thank you. So just as Lilit was saying, now it's time to talk about a few provincial resources that are available to municipalities for councils and staff to help them with the implementation of the Strong Mayor Power Framework. And one of our favorite resources is the Ontario Municipal Councillors Guide, which is an online resource. It's free. It's accessible to members of the public, councillors, or staff, where essentially, a lot of the municipal governance, finance, and now strong mayor power information is described in a summarized, plain language manner, which can be a helpful, quick reference guide for many people. So we do encourage folks to look at that resource. Section 10 in particular talks about strong mayor powers. Some of the key takeaways from this presentation, for example, are captured there. But of course, we would be remiss if we didn't also say that it's very important to look at the source legislation that discusses strong mayor powers, specifically in the Municipal Act and the regulations shown on the slide, which provide a listing of provincial priorities, which are very relevant, but also a list of the designated municipalities that have received strong mayor powers. So those are very key resources to consider. So as Lilit was mentioning earlier in the presentation, there is a transparency and accountability piece involved where heads of council in strong mayor power municipalities rather, they do have a requirement to provide written documentation whenever they use their strong mayor powers or duties on the following day, business day. This information is shared with the clerk. It's also shared with the public. Different municipalities have approached this topic in their own local way, but municipal web pages are a very good example of how municipalities have been making this information available, including Loyalist Township, to keep members of the public informed. So of course, municipalities also do this in alignment with their local accountability and transparency policies and procedures. So it varies from municipality to municipality. Actually, one thing that we should mention is that we will be providing staff with a list of different web pages that other municipalities have created as a separate attachment. But in this presentation, we have a subset of different websites that we wanted to profile for example. And the key piece of information to highlight here is that we're not necessarily endorsing any particular website as the perfect website, or we're not saying whether or not some municipalities have adhered with the legislative requirements or not. This is just for information purposes. So the first website that we wanted to highlight is from Ajax, the town of Ajax, which of course is outside of Eastern Ontario. But we wanted to profile this website because it displays information very clearly. It provides a summary of legislative authority, which is great, so folks can do their research and see themselves what the information is based on. Slide, please. So the other municipality is the city of Guelph, and this website includes links to PDF copies of each mayoral decision, and also includes a little summary of the subject matter for each decision. So again, very transparent. Next, we have the city of Hamilton, which it displays this information under the council and committee area of their website. And it's organized by year and decision. So it's very clear and expressed in chronological order. And next, of course, we have Loyalist Township, and we deliver this presentation to different councils across the region and the province. So Loyalist Township made it to our presentation that we're sharing with other interested councils. But what we liked in this on your website is that you have the strong mayor power frequently asked questions, which can be very helpful for folks who are trying to navigate this fairly complex subject matter. And it's very clear, it's very accessible, and again, this is something we've noticed. Next, we're going back to the GTA, and we're looking at the city of Barrie. So the city has also provided a list of directives and decisions. So while there's no requirement to make directions to staff public, some mayors or mayors in general may want to do this to support transparency in strong mayor power municipalities. So it's going above and beyond what's required, but all in the spirit of making the information transparent and accessible. So at this stage, we've said a lot of many things. So we would like to open the floor to questions. Before we get into some of your questions, if you have any, we just want to say that we'll do our best to answer the questions here. But again, this is not a substitute for specialized or legal advice or professional advice, and we may need to come back to you through staff with answers a little bit later if it's a more nuanced question. So on that note, thank you, and your worship, council, please let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions this evening? Councilor Broderick.
No, thank you. And through your worship, just one question, and it probably doesn't apply to this council, but can a mayor use his or her strong mayor powers to appoint a non-chair or vice chair to a committee? So if you had a committee of, let's say, 9, and you wanted, for whatever reason, to have more counselors on it, could that person do that? Because clearly it says vice chair and chair in the legislation.
So we're just having a quick look to see if we have this in our materials. If not, we will do our research and get back to you on that because it may be a bit more nuanced. So I think we'll take this one back and get back to you later.
Are there any other questions this evening? And throughout the meeting, Councilor Parks, I'll try to keep looking at the screen, but if I miss you, please speak up so that I don't miss a question or a comment that you have this evening.
No problem, thanks.
Thank you. Council, any questions this evening for the presenters? Seeing none. You must have been very thorough and very clear.
Oh, thank you very much, your worship.
So thank you. So that completes your full presentation then?
Absolutely. Thank you, your worship. One thing we will note before leaving is that this presentation and the appendices, it includes numerous frequently asked questions with responses, detailed responses. So we would encourage council to look at those because you may find some additional information. A lot of it was covered in our core slides, but it's a good quick reference resource.
References are always helpful because still as we're proceeding through this, the new strong mayor power, I keep coming up with more questions and fortunately so far staff have always been able to do some research and we've been able to work to figure them out, but it'll take a little while before all the municipalities, I'm sure, come to full terms with what it is. So thank you very much for your presentation. We really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing the information. Council, excuse me. We do have a recommendation provided. Deputy Mayor Townend.
I move that the strong mayor framework presented by Lilit Karapetyan, municipal advisor, and Peter Sizov, senior municipal advisor from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, be received.
So moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Willis, any comments from the mover?
Absolutely. I don't think it's, I never think it's appropriate to score political points by asking pointed questions to public servants. But I will just note that consistently in the last several years, housing starts are down in Ontario. So the evidence that these strong mayor powers are advancing that goal of increasing housing supply is certainly suspect. And as the presenter said, this is fairly complex. But one simple thing municipalities have said consistently that will help build more housing is to fund municipal infrastructure to support that housing. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Seconder, any comments? Other members of council? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you. And as usual, if you wish to leave, you're welcome to stay. I'm sure you'd enjoy it. But if you wish to leave, please feel free. Thank you. Okay. So the next one is the 2024 financial statements presented by Richard Steiginga, of partner of Baker Tilly. I believe he's going to be coming in virtually. There we go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry,
You're-
I may have missed some of your statement while I was being promoted to a panelist. So,
Oh, you're in the meeting now, so I just introduced who was going to be coming on screen, so feel free to carry on with the presentation.
all right. Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be here to present the results of our audit and then as well too a summary of your financial results. With me tonight is Dwayne Potter, our senior audit manager, senior municipal audit manager, joining me. So hopefully, if there's any hard questions, he can address those. So, as part of our audit, we also produce the detailed financial statements, and as well too, what I will go through tonight is the PowerPoint presentation here that you see online. So, or on the screen, sorry. So this is our summary of that we provide to most of our municipalities. Most people find it easier to read than the detailed financial statements. So, I will run through this, and please feel free to ask any questions as we go along, or save them till the end. So first off, if you take a look at the next slide, this then gives a summary of the independent auditor's report. So when you look at the detailed financial statements, the first page after the table of contents deals with the management report, which is a consistent report within PSAB, outlining management's responsibilities for the financial statements. And then next comes our independent auditor's report. So this is our report on the consolidated financial statements. The auditor's report is a 2-page document. What we've produced here is first what we consider the important paragraph that in our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly the financial position of Loyalist Township at December 31st and the results of its operations and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So that is your standard clean, unqualified auditor's report. And keep in mind too, when we say Canadian public sector accounting standards, that represents, that is more commonly known as PSAB, which is different than the way you are required to budget. So as we go through, try to highlight a few of those differences there. One thing to keep in mind that is in the auditor's report, this is our first year auditing the township. So just be aware then that the 2023 numbers that you see there within the financial statements and in these slides were audited by another firm who issued their unmodified opinion on November 6, 2024. And then as well too, when you look at the detailed financial statements, note 3 talks about some restatements to prior year's numbers. In 2023, there were still a few adjustments related to the asset retirement obligations for your landfills, and as well too the issue for financial instruments and recording some of your interest-free debt does require an adjustment under PSAB that were all effective for 2023. So those amounts are noted in note number 3. Keep in mind that both of those adjustments, though, do not have an impact on the township's operational surplus. On the following slide, you will see just some of the audit procedures that we do complete as we conduct the audit. And one of them does involve reviewing council minutes, and then as well too gathering the evidence we need to produce our auditor's report. And that includes sampling, looking at management estimates, analytical review, as well as then to looking at your systems and documentation of how and related controls of how monies move in, your revenues, where your monies go, outflows being payroll and disbursements, and then how you adjust things within your records being your journal entries. So we look at all of those items as well. Next, On the following slide, you will see there that the audit is complete pending receipt of some documents from council, as well to an updated legal letter, and then as well council approval of the financial statements, and as well too, as I mentioned earlier, just some confirmation from the previous auditor in relation to the prior period adjustment that I mentioned on the previous slide. Overall, there were no disagreements or difficulties with management or changes to the initial plan, our audit plan, sorry, and then as well to excellent cooperation from management and staff. Mind you, since it was our first year as auditors, of course, we did have to gather some additional information. Hopefully that wasn't too onerous on your staff. And then as well too, one thing to note, there were no unadjusted differences. So our scorecard that we keep, everything was adjusted by your staff, and they've completed all the various entries that they needed to do, and items that we found as well. So that just goes to show the excellent cooperation from your staff in this process. So that's a summary of where things are at with the actual audit process. Now, when we come along to the next slide, we'll just look at some numbers and maybe some trends. So what we did here was gather information that we had for the last 4 years for the township, and then presented those numbers both for the statement of financial position and the statement of operations. And now within PSAB, they like to break things down between financial assets. So those are assets that the township has that will be turned, that are either cash or will be turned into cash. And later on, you'll see non-financial assets. So overall, when you take a look at the trend, you will see there that the cash in 2024 did decline by almost $14 million. But then as well, your receivables increased about $13.4 million. And as a trend, we will see throughout the statements, the capital work being done during 2024, mainly on your hub recreation center, will impact a number of these slides. So that is a large portion of that, and that's partial reason why your receivables went up significantly in relation to government grants for that capital projects, as well as HST receivable that goes along with all your capital spending for that project. So that, in addition to some other revenues from other municipalities for that project. So all of that, those items add to about a little over $14 million of your receivables in total, related from other levels of government. And then as well too, you also have some amounts owing from residents for water and wastewater charges and things such as that. And then you have your standard receivables for services that the municipality offers. And then as well too, you'll see there taxes receivable. You're one of the few municipalities that we're dealing with in 2024 where your actual taxes receivable went down. So that was good to see. Most others are increasing. And then as well too, the ministry looks at your percentage of taxes outstanding in relation to your total levy, and you will see there that in 2023 you were at 11% of the total levy, whereas this year you dropped down to about 9.6%. So that's good to see there that it is decreasing, and hopefully that continues in 2025 as well too. You still have some land held for resale. One property was sold, and then some other properties have been moved to a non-financial asset. And then as well too, you still have some other recoveries. And so then in total, you had about almost $51 million in total financial assets. Next, you will see there on the following slide who you owe money to. Not surprisingly, that with all your capital work going on, you did have a lot of outstanding capital payments as well. So that causes the increase in your accounts payable and accrued liabilities for both the work at the Hub Recreation Center and as well too the increase in the related holdbacks associated with that. And as well too some standard payables within there, and as well too amounts for payroll accruals and things such as that also increased year over year. So that that is driving a lot of the increase there. Next, we have deferred revenue obligatory reserve funds. So that those are funds that you've received the money for, that you don't get to spend it. Sorry, you don't get to recognize it as revenue until you spend it within certain conditions. And as well too, your largest component remaining at the end of the year would be your development charges of about $1.5 million. And then you have some various gas tax and parkland monies still available that can be used going forward. Next, we have the other deferred revenue, and this represents a lot of it is related to grants, monies you've received that you can carry forward into 2025. Majority of that being your OCIF funding and your Housing Accelerator Fund from CMHC, and as well to about $1.3 million in building department revenues that can be used as you complete building permits in the future. Next, you will see your long-term debt. So for 2023 and 2024, your zero interest loan amount has been adjusted to reflect the amortized cost of that. So that's why it's lower in 2023 compared to 2022, as we did not go back and restate that year. But still, in total, you paid down about gross payments of about $900,000, and then some interest was added to the zero interest loan, giving a net difference of around $300,000. And then as well too, you still have your asset retirement obligation that reflects predominantly your landfill liability in the past. So that's makes up the $4.2 million, and 3.9 of that is related to the landfills. And then as well too, you have your future employee benefits. So that represents the estimated costs that are actuarially determined for both being a Schedule 2 WSIB employer and as well retiree benefits. And those items, similar to the asset retirement obligations, you don't factor them into your tax rate budget until you're going to spend those monies. So then in total, you had about $58 million in financial assets. And then the next slide gives you an idea as to your net financial assets. So when you take your financial assets and subtract your financial liabilities, you will see there over the last 4 years, you've been positive, then been negative, and then positive in 2023. And then with all the work being done in capital this year, you were negative at the end of 2024. The following slide just talks about your non-financial assets. So these are items that you have that you do not try to turn into cash. Normally you have them to provide services to your ratepayers, and you will see there that the tangible capital assets is your largest component there, and there was a large increase year over year. And so this is the historical cost of all your assets, less any depreciation, amortization attached to those. And as well too, at the end of 2024, you had about almost $43 million in assets that were still considered to be in progress or not in use yet. And as well too, you have some inventories of supplies. And within there, part of that increase is some land held for resale that got moved over from a financial asset. And then as well, prepaid expenses is mainly your prepaid insurance. So in total, you had about almost $250 million in non-financial assets. Then the following slide will give you an idea as to where you spent your capital asset additions this year. And then as well, within the $24 million in building and building improvements, almost a little over $21 million of that was related to the Hub project. And then as well, just some water and wastewater projects, stormwater and roads and bridges as well, being the other largest components, giving you the $45.6 million in total additions in 2024. And then on the next slide, you'll just see over the last 3 years, your capital asset additions versus the amortization. And you can see there the additions were significantly more in 2024 than amortization, and that's consistent for the last 3 years as well. And then the following slide, I think is the important slide of all of these out of the slide deck. It's the breakdown of your accumulated surplus. You have almost about $243,000 in accumulated surplus, of which almost $220 million is tied up in your capital assets. So that explains why that majority why that you don't have that much money in your bank account. You do have it invested. And keep in mind, when we take a look at that number, that's the net book value of your assets less whatever debt you have associated with that, any asset retirement obligations coming off there as well. And then as well too, at the end of 2024, you had about $23 million in unfinanced capital. Majority of that does relate to the Hub Recreation Center. So that then will be financed as that project gets completed. And then as well too, you have a number of other projects, either roads related or equipment replacement needs that are in that unfinanced capital amount as well. And then as well too, some of those numbers were for the previous year were adjusted as well. And really that from the previous set of financial statements, your capital fund was reduced by about $6 million, and your reserves for 2023 were increased just based on your staff's analysis of what is in those accounts. So it's still all stayed within your accumulated surplus, but it was just broken down into different components. As I said earlier, your unfunded employee future benefits are you raise those tax dollars when you spend those amounts, so that's why they show up there as a deficit. And as well too, you still have some unfunded amounts or deficits within the water and sewer areas. And then as well too, you have some property that was financed and that will also need to be financed in future years. And then what you have left is your reserve and your reserve funds, and you will see there that the end of 2023, just about $35.5 million, and they during 2024 they increased to $41.3 million. So that you just have some monies set aside that you can utilize going forward. And as you're finding out, capital costs are significantly more expensive than they have been in the past. So having reserves ideally will help reduce some of the future requirements to ease those amounts. And as well too, as I said earlier, your capital assets are recorded at historical costs. So there's no correlation between that and what it will cost to replace those. And then the following slide gives you an idea, just some differences between PSAB revenues and expenses versus how they are when you set your tax rate budget. And you will see there, both within the PSAB budget, it was showing almost a $3.7 million surplus, whereas the reconciliation piece below that shows you the differences between PSAB and how you set your tax rates. And then as well, a couple things to note there. Of course, capital assets are the major difference, and then as well too, asset retirement obligations. And you did have some donated assets that were turned over, or you've assumed from developers for almost $5.7 million. Your increase in finance capital was about $17 million, and as well too, some surpluses and principal repayments You'll see there you paid about $942,000 down on your debt, but then the debt was also increased for the interest component of your one interest-free loan for about $622,000. And then, but you can see there that the numbers do all come back to zero as they should. And then as well, on the following slide, just gives you an idea as the revenue and expenses over the last 4 years. And the big increase in 2024 is mainly reflective of the fact that you had a lot of capital grants, and as well too, you used development charges and Canada Community Building Fund for capital. So you recognize that revenue in 2024 when you've earned it, but the expense doesn't hit until later on when you depreciate or amortize those assets. So next, when we take a look at the financial activities on your revenue side, you will see there that in total, just due to how capital grants get recorded and as well to donated capital assets, you will see there that you did come in over budget, and that is the main reason why for a lot of those variances. And as well too, keep in mind when you take a look at user charges, almost $11 million of that $14 million is related to water and wastewater charges. Government of Canada, a lot of that is about $8.4 million for the Hub Recreation Center. As well too, Province of Ontario does include some OCIF funding and Connecting Link funding. Other municipalities, that does relate to additional capital funding from the county, as well as some monies recognized for capital from the city of Kingston. Your investment income was higher than budgeted, slightly up from the prior year. One thing to note, the second line that says other municipalities should say other grants, and that represents monies you receive for recycling operations, as well as Ontario Trillium Foundation. And then as well too, you will see there that you utilized about $2.4 million in development charges for mainly capital projects, including the hub for about $1.6 million. And the Canada Community Building Fund was utilized for roads work for Potter and Old Walton Road, things such as that. And then you use the provincial gas tax for transits. And then as well too, you recognized a gain on some property you had as a tangible capital assets for a gain on that sale. And then as well too, within the other, it includes land sales and just some other revenue and things such as that. So in total, you had $72 million in total revenue. And then when we take a look at the expenditure side on the following slide, you will see there that the amounts are presented in the financial information return headings. And in total, you had $45.4 million in total expenses, slightly higher than the $44.2 million in the budget. Keep in mind too, a portion of that does include about $622,000 added into the planning and development line for the interest expense on the interest-free loan, and as well too, and within general government as well, there were some additional items that were approved by council and funded from reserves for additional grants and donations. So that's causing the variance there. And then as well too, within protection services there and transportation services, there were just some higher operating costs. So those are the amounts creating some of the variance from budget to actual. And then though when you look at the percentages, they do remain fairly consistent year to year as the percentage of expenses. And then on the following slide, you will see there the type of expenses just shown in the same total as the previous page, which is shown by the type of expenses. And as you can see there, your municipality almost like every other municipality, provides their services with staff. So that's why salaries and benefits are the largest component there, and as well too, contracted services includes your OPP contract, largest one there in that total, and as well too, your interest charges are higher than budget just for the PSAB adjustment for the interest-free loan. So, and then as well too, your external transfers, that's higher than budget is where those additional grants and donations were. And your amortization was higher than the budget as well. So, but still the percentages do remain fairly consistent from year to year. And that is then a summary of this presentation.
Thank you. Excuse me. Council, are there any questions for the presenters at this time? Seeing none. Well done. Thank you so much for bringing it forward and providing it to council. As you know, we will be the financial statements, the year end are on this agenda. We will be dealing with them in a couple of items. And so that should help wrap up the 2024. So, and I also would like to thank you, your company, for everything that I've talked to staff about and the input that I've had. You were very thorough, as you said, first time working with the township. So you had to double check a few things to be able to build on them, but very professional, very thorough, and staff worked well with you. So we appreciate that as well. It's always great when you can work together and be able to bring out the final product like this. So thank you.
Thank you.
So council, we have a recommendation before us. Would someone like to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Willis.
I move that the 2024 financial statements presented by Richard Steiginga, CPA, CA partner from Baker Tilly, be received.
So moved, seconded by Councillor Ennis. Any comments from the mover? Seconder? Other members? Being none, call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you. And the next up is open forum. There are 15 minutes that are set aside for open forum, and an individual may address council regarding an item on the agenda, excluding matters under the statutory public meeting section on the same agenda. Each person has 3 minutes to speak, and we didn't have anyone register in advance. So I will just go in chambers, and then I will go virtual to ask if anyone wishes to speak under open forum. And if you're virtual, I will ask that you use the raised hand feature when the time comes, and the clerk's department can bring you into the meeting. So in chambers, I don't believe there's anyone to speak under open forum. And so I will go to the virtual. If there's anyone in the virtual audience that wishes to speak under open forum, please use the raise hand feature and we will bring you into the meeting. Seeing none. Next is delegations. And we have Mr. Miller here to address a water bill forgiveness request. So if you don't mind coming right up to the table here, as with the others, if you could just sit where there's a mic, you push the button, it will light up, and that way you'll be, the virtual audience will be able to hear you as well. And please, when you're ready to go ahead and provide us with your information.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. Thank you for your time. I'll endeavor not to waste it. As you may have seen in my submission, my name is Kristan Miller. I'm a resident of Bath. I experienced a significant leak this past spring, and this resulted ultimately in a charge of $9,476. I stand before you to consider forgiving an amount of $4,418.79. As you know, there is a water leak forgiveness program already. I've been consulting with the Utilities Department on this. They've advised me that any amount in excess of $2,000, which is the limit, has to come to council directly, which is why I'm here. Essentially, my argument, as you saw, and I will recap it very briefly, is that I experienced a significant leak. As you saw in the supporting documentation, a portion of that leak was for water sewage services, which I don't believe are relevant. What's happened here is that a leak in one of my lines and the water went into the ground, I should say. And so my motion before you is that the portions, items S30 and 31, which adds up to the total of 4,400 and change. I'm asking that be credited to my account. I'm happy to expound on the circumstances of the incident, and I yield my time to council for questions.
Thank you. And you'd already mentioned you've been working with staff on this and they're aware of the situation. And
They
everything. Is
are.
that
They've
correct?
informed my appeal to you today.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So council, any questions regarding this evening? Councillor Prodrick.
Thank you. And through your worship, just a clarification. So in effect, the water never entered the sewer system. It was pumped out from your sump hole, probably over an extensive amount of time.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. Into the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions this evening? Seeing none, we thank you for bringing this forward. We do have a recommendation to receive. There can be a decision made this evening. The other method, which typically is done, and this is, I just want to explain it to you.
Please.
Typically, with a lot of these requests, we'll request a staff report to come back to council. As you said, there is a forgiveness policy. This is over and above it. So typically staff look at if we're able to do it, you know, they look at the funding and the budget and all of that as well, which would come back in that report as well. And also they could share more information as well with the circumstances that you've worked with them on. So I'm just letting you know that if that is the result of the recommendation, that's the next process that township would follow through with.
Understood.
Okay, so with that, I would ask, does anyone have a motion to make? Councillor Willis.
I would move that the delegation from Kristan Miller regarding a water bill forgiveness request be received and staff be instructed to return to council with a report on council's options to support forgiveness of the debt.
So moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Budrick. Mover, any comments? Seconder? Other members of council? I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you for bringing this forward, and we'll continue working with you, and the report will come back to council. The next item is the 2024 year-end financial statements and net surplus. And we do have some staff coming forward. As they get seated and ready for this item, I would like to introduce our new Director of Finance and Treasurer, David Clazier. We were fortunate enough to, with the round of applications we've received, David applied for this position, and so far, in the short time you've been here, you've advanced a lot already. Here's one of them. And you've completed a lot of work already, and you've got a lot more ahead of you, but very impressive work to date. And welcome to Loyalist Township, and we look forward to working with you for quite some time. So with that, was there anything additional to the report to share this evening?
After the thorough review from the auditors, I will be deferring to any questions from council.
Excuse me. Council, any questions this evening? Councillor Willis.
It's a small one. A few weeks ago, Mr. Smith, you sent an email and it was explaining how we recognize building permit revenue.
Mhm.
So, and I think my understanding of it is that we recognize it when the building permit is closed.
So, through your worship to Councillor Willis's question, the building permit revenue has historically taken when the permit was issued. Under changes in PSAB this year, the new rules were that it would be at the time. So if we have each permit step now, due to the difficulty of tracking every single step on every permit, a rough ratio of about 50% was what was initially planned. However, due to the size of our reserve that we have at the current moment after some record growth years, that the auditors have felt that we had enough in the reserve to cover the permits that are not completed at the end of the year. So we were able to not have to withdraw that amount of money from revenue and able to leave it in revenue in 2024.
Yes.
Sometimes in my world, I run into building permits that were never closed. So do we have a danger if we're waiting further into the process that if somebody doesn't close the building permit on their deck that they built, that we would never know to take that revenue out of the reserve?
Through your worship, the answer was we were using a 50%. So 50% was in year one and 50% is in year two. The reason is talking with the CBO and staff, it was estimated that the average permit was only open for about 6 months. So therefore, we felt that using a 50% ratio in this municipality would be reasonable. I do know other municipalities were looking at a third for the longer permits, but because of the builders doing the vast majority and getting the buildings done quickly, we felt the 50%, and then we would just take the 50% the next year and would not leave it outstanding.
Okay. Any other questions regarding this item from council? Seeing none? Well, thank you. I would entertain a motion if council is ready. Deputy Mayor Townend.
I move that the report from the Finance Division, October 14th, 2025, read 2024 year-end financial statements and net surplus be received. And A, that draft 2024 audited financial statements be approved. B, the draft 2024 audited trust fund financial statements be approved. C, the 2024 audited financial statements be filed by staff with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. D, in accordance with the operating surplus and deficit management policy, distribution of general rate net surplus and recovery of utilities rate deficit be as follows. One, $128,230 to the general rate capital reserve fund. Two, $14,248 to the reserve for working funds. Three, $68,512 to the utilities sewer capital reserve fund. Four, $215,585 to the utilities water capital reserve fund. And five, $232,443 to the utilities rate stabilization reserve.
So moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Broderick, any comments from the mover? Seconder? Other members? Seeing none, I would just like to thank staff as well. I know getting it to the goalpost here is a lot of work. As I'm in and out of the office and everything I see and in discussions with the CAO, I realize the amount of work that goes into this. So thank you very much. Thanks for making it happen and working so well with the auditors. With that, I will call a question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you. Next up is the 2026 budget meeting schedule update. Welcome. As usual, is there anything additional to share besides the report?
Through you, your worship, there are no further comments at this time, just here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Council, in case there's questions for clarification before we take a motion, I'll ask. If there are questions for clarification, feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, I'll just move to the motion. Okay. If someone would like to present the motion then, Councillor Proderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that the report from the Clerk's Division dated October 14th, 2025, 2026 budget meeting schedule update be received, and two, that council approve amending the 2026 budget timelines to A, cancel the special committee of the whole meeting scheduled for November 4th, 2025, and B, change the council budget meeting dates to November 18th, November 26th, and December 2nd.
So moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ennis, any comments from the mover? Seconder? Other members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. And next up is a license agreement renewal with the Fairfield Homestead Heritage Association. I missed one. Thank you. Takes a village. The Source Protection Committee member for the Western area. And is there anything additional to share this time?
Just here for questions.
Thank you. Council, we do have a recommendation. Would someone like to put a motion on the floor? Deputy Mayor Town.
I move that the report from the Clerk's Division dated October 14th, 2025, Resource Protection Committee member, Western Area be received, and two, that Loyalist Council endorse the reappointment of Luke McDonald, Engineering and Environment Manager, to the Cataraqui Source Protection Committee member until January 31st, 2029.
So moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Budrick. Mover, any comments?
I think the opinion of council of the worthiness of this reappointment is obvious, so.
Seconder, any comments? Other members of council? Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Now we can go to the license agreement renewal for the Fairfield Homestead Heritage Association. Welcome. Do you have anything additional to share?
Nothing additional.
Nothing additional? Okay. We do have the report with the recommendation. Would someone like to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Willis.
I move that the report from the Heritage, Culture and Tourism Division, October 14th, 2025, relicense agreement Fairfield Homestead Heritage Association be received, and that council approve the renewal of the licensing agreement with the Fairfield Homestead Heritage Association with a one-year extension, and that council authorize the mayor and chief administrative officer to execute the extended licensing agreement.
So moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Proderick, any comments from the mover? Seconder? Other members? Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you. Now, motion presented by Councillor Proderick. Wish to present that?
Certainly, thank you. I would recommend that staff be directed to review the facility allocation policy in regards to ice time allotment, to consider historical ice use, local ice use user groups based in Loyalist, youth user groups, and the changing needs based on population trends, and a revised policy be brought to council in the spring prior to ice allocations for the 2026-2027 season.
So moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ennis. Any comments from the mover?
I would just say that some of the user groups are, the best way to put it, are looking for change maybe, but we need to go through a process, and talking with staff, I think this is a good way to go at it, get it on the table so that the user groups understand we're looking at things, and that, again, before the, I guess the allotments come out for next season, that we have something that maybe reflects some of the things that have changed since Loyalist undertook their last policy review in this area.
Okay. Seconder, any comments?
Through the mayor, just that it's an issue that pops up from time to time and has recently, and I think, as Councillor Broderick has said, I think it's worth having a look at. for council at this time.
Yeah, thank you. Other members, any comments, questions? I just have one question and I'll direct it to staff. Just give a minute to come back up to the front. I believe there were some discussions with this before. I just wanted to double check the timelines that's provided in this. Is that doable? I believe it was within the time frame that was discussed before, but I wanted to confirm that before the motion went through.
That's correct, Your Worship. We've had some discussions with our user groups. And it's in our work plan to do the review and consultation and have it ready to go prior to the allocations that start happening, those discussions start happening in the spring.
Perfect. Thank you. So with that, I will go back. Any final comments from the mover?
I would just echo what Ms. McFarland said, that sometimes my timelines are a little, maybe less than reasonable, and I can accept, and we did have a good discussion about the item, so I'm pleased with that.
Great. Thank you. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. And I would entertain a motion to go into the committee of the whole. So moved, Deputy Mayor Townen, seconded by Councillor Ennis. Call the question. All in favor? Motion.
Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Items for consideration, 13.3.1, 2026 fees and charges update. And the deputy clerk. Please proceed.
So through the chair, we just wanted to, just a little overview of this. So this is the draft bylaw for fees and charges for 2026. So we just want to provide this to the committee for any comments, questions, yeah. So we're open to any comments or questions tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mill. I'll turn to the committee for questions on this. Councillor Willis.
Forgive me if I missed it because there's a lot of lines in the charts. I didn't see proposed fees for the Amherst Island Community Center.
So through the chair to Councillor Willis, that does not appear to be in a current schedule, but it's something we can ensure is brought in the final bylaw.
Other questions? Catches. Very good. You do have a recommendation? Mr. Mayor.
I move that the report from the Clerk's Division dated October 14th, 2025, fees and charges update be received, and that staff be directed to bring forward the draft fees and charges bylaw to a future meeting of council for adoption.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Willis, any comment, Your Worship? Councillor Willis? Anyone else? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Capital project prioritization policy. You kicking us off, Mr. McDonald?
Yep. So through you, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. The capital project prioritization policy back in the fall of 2024, staff had brought forward a report to council seeking direction on potential updates. The previous policy was fairly broad and high level and focused on 5 key project classes, while the procedure that was then further developed by staff aimed to implement that policy through the use of a weighted matrix. So in that report last fall, staff identified that merging the policy and procedure would allow council to provide input into several elements that were affecting the weighted matrix that may be of interest to council. So that's what over the last year staff have been working on and have brought forward this updated policy to committee of the whole for consideration. So before I get into sort of the high level of it, I would just note that tonight's presentation on the strong mayor's power is a timely one, as this policy will be impacted by those powers potentially. While the mayor can always consider this policy, it would not be considered binding in any manner when preparing the capital budget. So this policy has been structured to introduce the use of 2 primary categories. So the primary category type or project type is intended to reflect what the project is, while the secondary category type, also called the project drivers, is why the project is happening. So the 5 primary categories under the policy are asset management, legislated, growth, enhanced level of service, and operational enhancements. And then there are 9 secondary categories, and they are risk rating, funding availability, plans approved by council, cooperative procurements, preventative maintenance, project readiness, time sensitive, positive return on investment, and health and safety. When staff brought the report to committee of the whole last fall, one of the comments that we received from council at that time was the introduction of a sliding scale in terms of specifically funding availability. So that way the points that were being allocated weren't all or nothing. And staff have introduced that, as well as taken that principle and introduced it in several other areas throughout the policy, such as risk rating or plans approved by council, where there's a tiered approach to try and differentiate similarly grouped items, but allow for that additional level of sensitivity in the ranking. So in the staff report, there are a number of examples going through different scenarios for the policy in terms of how different categories are applied and whatnot. I'm not going to go through all of them. I did want to just highlight sort of how the approach would be taken when preparing the long-range financial plan and looking at projects further out into our 10-year capital timeframe versus how they're being compared to current projects that are being proposed to move forward. So there are 2 examples that are included within the staff report that are the same project, just in this theoretical example, they're spaced out 8 years apart. And so you can see as you're going through the sections there. So if there's a water main reconstruction project where we're partnering with the county in the long range financial plan, that's occurring 8 years in the future, as has been agreed to by the county. The present day score, the breakdown there comes to a project prioritization score of 70 points. And so that's broken by using the asset management primary category as 5 and multiplied by the total secondary category score of 14 to get that 70, where the 14 is broken down into the risk rating category. And so what that risk rating category looks at is within our asset management plan, every asset that's included has a risk score that's associated to that. And so we've taken that exact score and used it in this setting. So in this case, the worst case asset is rated at a 14 of 25 to get that secondary category score of 14. This example goes through a number of other secondary categories, such as funding availability. So it's received a 0 because there's no grant funding. Plan approved by council. So there's a 0 because it's a life cycle replacement, as opposed to something that's been included in a strategic plan or a master plan or something of that level. In the current day scenario, the group procurement, it receives a score of 0 because the county is not intending to proceed with the project. Project readiness receives a 0 because it hasn't been completed design at this time, and a number of other items throughout there to get you that score of 70. So then taking that exact same project and ranking it again 8 years into the future once the project is ready to proceed, you can see it's still primary category of asset management 5, but this time the total secondary score is 105, representing the increased urgency to the project that's occurred over the age difference, which receives a much higher project score of 525 total points. And this is broken down to an increased risk rating from the previous 14 to 20. Funding availability. So the project has been accounted for within the user rate study. So this time now there's funding available through that. The project is being procured with the county. So there's points allocated for that. The project is ready as the design has been completed. So there's points allocated for that. So you can see as projects progress through their life cycle, they're going to become of higher and higher importance until they're able to actually proceed. And so that's how it's been intended to be set up. So that way it can be applied for both the long range financial plan and the annual capital budget. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Mr. McDonald. Questions? Councillor Ennis.
You through the chair. Just a question about the growth category and then the enhanced level of service categories. And just maybe could you just help me out with a bit more what the distinction is and why growth is a 3 and enhanced level of service is a 2?
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair. So growth projects would be primarily projects that are identified within the DC or impost studies that are accommodating direct developments. Whereas enhanced level of services could be a change in how we're operating that isn't impacted by growth. So I believe the example that was in the report is currently if we have a gravel road, the level of service for that is anything, I believe, over 200 AADT would then be upgraded to tar and chip road LCB. So if council elected to change that threshold from 200 to say 100, and now there's a gravel road that was at 150, previously the level of service was sufficient with the council policy, but with that change in policy, now we're enhancing that level of service, and it's due to a direction of council as opposed to a neighboring development causing an increase in the growth. So the total amount of traffic vehicles traveling that road hasn't changed, so there's no growth, but there's a council direction to upgrade the level of service on that road.
Follow up, and like one example I'm thinking of is, say, the splash pads from the rec master plan. The way I sort of looked at those ones is, the first splash pad is sort of like what might be appropriate for our current sort of population numbers roundabout, and then in the future, when we have more growth, perhaps we might consider the second one that's in the plan. So I'm just wondering, that first one, would that be sort of up to current levels of population standard? Would that be considered enhanced level of service or growth? Do you know where I'm going with?
Yep, so through you, Mr. Chair. No, that's an excellent question. Generally, those determinations are made during the DC background studies. So we have those discussions with the consultant that are preparing it, and they look at those exact questions. So based on your population growth and your levels of service and historical and whatnot, compared to the requirements that are in the DC Act itself, that dictate that. And then based on that process where we put together the project list, we table that, do consultation with the development community and residents, and then ultimately bring that forward to council. That's how we would vet those projects through that process. So ultimately, if a project was included within the DC background study as a growth component, then that would be that driving factor. And generally speaking, I would agree with your example there for the splash pad as well, that that has a growth element and it's historically been reflected in our DC background study because of that.
Other members? Councillor Broderick.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a real simple question, not a question more. In the recommendation, so point 3, that the attached capital project prioritization policy be adopted and implemented in the 2027 budget year. Is that fair to say? Because it really doesn't say it in the recommendation. It just sort of, it's there and it's, you know. Just wondering if you could add that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, that's appropriate. The 2027 budget year is what's intended for implementation. Unfortunately, we will not have time for 2026, so that's a fair amendment to that.
Do you want to move it then, Councillor Broderick, the recommendation?
Certainly. Nicely. I would move that the report from the Engineering and Environment Division dated October 14th, 2025 recapital project prioritization policy be received. And 2, that the existing capital project prioritization policy dated October 5th, 2009 be repealed. And that the attached capital project prioritization policy be adopted and implemented in the 2027 budget year.
So moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Innes, comments from the mover? Seconder? Anyone else? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn from Committee of the Whole. Moved by Councillor Innes. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We are adjourned at 7:38.
Okay, we'll reconvene the council meeting. The next item up is notice of motion. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Did we lose Councillor Parks? She's not on the screen. Oh, okay. Seeing none, are there any direct motions this evening? Seeing none, we have the consent agenda with item. Would someone like to make a motion for the consent agenda? Councillor Willis.
I move that all items in the consent agenda dated October 14th, 2025 be approved as presented and that the necessary action be taken.
So moved. Seconded by Councillor Parks. Any comments from the mover? Seconder? Other members of council? All the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Any announcements this evening? Councillor Budrick.
Just wishing the condolences to the family of Phil Paco Agostino, lifelong
resident of Amherst-Hugh, the loss to his wife Susan and his children. Was a very large-hearted member of a community and would do anything for you. He was a great man. And that's all.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Ennis?
Just like to offer condolences to the family, to the Barker family. Michael Barker passed away at age 79. He was a longtime resident of Odessa and longtime previous owner of the Pop-In for many years. So our thoughts are with the Barker family.
Thank you. Any other announcements this evening? Being none. Confirmatory bylaw, I remembered. Deputy Mayor,
I move that bylaw 2025-60 to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Loyalist Township be enacted and passed, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and seal.
so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Broderick. Call the question, all in favor? Motion is passed, and do we have a motion to adjourn? Deputy Mayor. Meeting adjourned at 7:41. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Willis, all in favor?